She believed that they would by now still be somewhere in the kingdom. Her mother had told her that it would take a day's work to journey through the kingdom. Little Lalia set out running from the burning hearths as fast as her legs could carry her, believing that she could catch up with them if she ran fast enough. The neighbors tried to stop her, but she would not listen. She ran the rest of the day until it was almost sunset. She felt that if she caught up with them, her mother would allow her to go with them, especially now that their hut was burnt down. As she ran, she came across some woods, almost nearing the border of the kingdom. As she slowed down to assess her surroundings, she saw some fierce-looking men muttering words to each other. They seemed dangerous to her, and she came to realize that they were highway robbers, planning to ambush a passing carriage. They were the Sereburus. They surrounded the carriage and were wildly jeering as they circled it like a lion circling its prey. The passengers were petrified, closing the carriage door with them inside. And as one of the bandits hit the carriage doors, Lalia heard one of them scream, "Open the carriage and take everything you can carry. Don't leave anything behind." The same guy turned towards where Lalia hid. She felt as though he had seen her, and as she looked around in quiet panic for somewhere she could run to, she saw that there was another man standing just inches away from where she stood. She watched him nod at his friend, and she realized that the guy in front of her must have been the lookout for the group. She also saw that not very far from where the lookout stood, there was a muddy pit. She quickly got her wits about her and attacked the guy closest to her. She tried to push the man in the pit, but he grabbed her before she could even touch him. He was quicker and stronger than she was. He laughed at her struggle to wrench herself free. He held her up and continued to laugh at the little girl and the futile fight she was putting up against him. "Ooh, what do we have here?" The man continued laughing. He was a very big, dark-looking man. He would have scared even the bravest of people, but Lalia held her resolve as she continued to fight her way out of his strong grip. She bit into his thick arm and made him drop her on the ground as he screamed insults at her. She knew that her actions had infuriated him, and she started running for her life. The man recovered quickly and was hot on her tail, and it was not long when he caught up with her. He grabbed her and held his dagger to her face. He pressed it against her cheek and sliced her face, starting from just above her eyes downwards. Little Lalia screamed for help while he continued tearing her skin until he reached her cheeks. There were tears and blood all over her face, and there was a lot more on the man's hand as he dropped her on the ground. He laughed at her while she continued crying, bleeding on the ground. "Shut up, you little rat, or I will make you." He spat at her with contempt, almost wanting to slit her throat because the sound of her cries irritated him. He reached out to grab her once more. However, that was when they both heard some rustling in the bushes nearby. It was as if something was coming their way and fast. The wind was blowing very hard at this point, as if it was howling. It was a koala. He blew the guy off his feet and threw him into the pit as if he was a rag doll. After this, Lalia heard the cries coming from deep in the wild wind. It was the voice of the bandit who had just assaulted her, and he was screaming for the other robbers to flee. "Run! Run! The king's guards are coming! Run!" Lalia was in shock. Everything happening looked so surreal, and it was all too strange to understand. She even found herself screaming the same words that the wind was howling. On hearing this, the Sereburus turned to see what the commotion was all about, but they could see nothing. All they knew was that the sounds were coming from the place their lookout stood, but they were not about to stay back to be sure. They ran away with their loot and a few of the horses they had managed to steal. They knew what to expect if the king's guards show up. They will all be killed in an instant. Within a few moments, they were all gone. Little Lalia was petrified and still in shock over everything she has just witnessed. She watched as the wind disappeared into thin air. She ran towards the carriage, still muttering, "Run, run, the king's guards are coming. They are coming." She continued saying this until her voice became hoarse and she could not hear herself again. She looked around and saw a slew of dead bodies around her. There were also few men who seemed hurt and were struggling to stand up. She started feeling faint, and that was her last vision of the scene before she fell unconscious. That was the last thing she remembered conscious. When she regained her consciousness, she found herself on the largest mattress in the biggest room that she had ever seen. The mattress was so soft and comfortable that she knew that she would have never believed that such mattresses existed if she wasn't lying on it now. She touched her face and found it was covered with leaves, and she also saw herself in clothes she did not recognize. She immediately felt the desire to run away again, but when she tried to sit up on the bed, she could not. She felt weak and sore all over her body. She must have made some noises from her movement, because as she was making her second attempt to sit up, she saw some women, maids perhaps, rushing towards her.